Welcome, my friend. Let everything slow. In the darkest hour of the Imperium, as the galaxy burned in the fires of the Horus heresy, the Emperor of mankind prepared a secret weapon, a final answer to the one enemy he feared above all others, the demons of the warp and the gods of chaos who commanded them. He made a chapter of Space Marines unlike any other, forged from his own genome, hidden on a moon at the edge of the Sol system, kept so secret that even other Space Marines would believe them a myth. These are the Grey Knights, the Silver Hunters of demonkind, the Emperor's secret weapon against chaos. Tonight we begin at their beginning, in the fire of the heresy, with the making of the most hidden chapter in the Imperium. Tonight we sit with the founding of the Grey Knights, the Emperor's secret answer to the demon and the god of chaos. The fear of the Emperor. To understand the Grey Knights, we must begin with a fear that came upon the Emperor in the last days of the heresy. In the final days of the Horus heresy, the Emperor of mankind became fixed upon a danger he had long tried to hold at bay, the threat of the demons and the gods of chaos. The heresy had shown him the full horror of the warp, the way the ruinous powers could corrupt even his own sons, turn his own legions, draw the mightiest of his primarchs into the service of the dark gods. Chaos sought the corruption, the subjugation, and the torment of mankind, and the heresy had proven how close it could come to winning. The Emperor saw, in the fire of the rebellion, the true scale of the demonic threat, and he resolved to make a weapon that could answer it. The Emperor had spent much of his existence trying to deny the warp, to build a rational humanity that could turn away from the immaterium and its horrors. But the heresy had shown that the warp could not be ignored. The demons were real, the gods of chaos were real, and they would never cease their assault on mankind. If humanity was to survive, it needed a weapon made for this one purpose: the destruction of demons, the banishment of the warp's horrors, the defense of the species against the ruinous powers. The Emperor, in the last days of the heresy, set out to make that weapon. There is an irony in this that the Lord does not hide. The Emperor had long known of the warp and its dangers, had built his whole project of human ascendancy in part to escape them. Yet he had kept the true scale of the chaos threat hidden, even from his own sons, forbidding the worship of the dark gods to be spoken of, denying the demonic to a galaxy he meant to lead into a rational age. And that very silence, some say, left his legions unprepared for the corruption that came, the primarchs ignorant of the enemy that would turn so many of them. By the time the Emperor moved to make a weapon against chaos, the heresy was already raging, half his sons already fallen. The secret weapon came late, forged in the fire of a betrayal that a clearer warning might have lessened. But late or not, the weapon was made. The Emperor, having seen the full horror of the demonic in the heresy, having watched his legions turn and his galaxy burn, resolved that mankind would have a force made for this one war. The Grey Knights would be that force, the answer to the threat the Emperor had come to fear above all others, the weapon forged in the last days of the heresy to fight the endless war against chaos that the Emperor now saw clearly would never end. From his fear and his late clarity came the Silver Hunters, the chapter made for the one enemy that could never be allowed to win. And so he turned to his most trusted servant, the one being he relied upon above all others, Malcador the Sigillite. The Emperor asked Malcador to scour the Imperium and find individuals worthy of a great and secret task, warriors and leaders of utmost loyalty and incorruptible soul, who could form the core of a new weapon against chaos. Malcador, the Emperor's regent and closest confidant, took up the charge, searching the burning Imperium for the champions who would become the foundation of the most secret chapter the Imperium would ever know. The Gathering of the 12. Malcador's search brought him to 12 individuals, chosen for their loyalty and their strength, who would become the founders of 2 great institutions. Malcador the Sigillite gathered 12 worthy champions from across the Imperium. 4 of them were mortal lords and administrators, men and women of steely and inquiring nature, chosen for their loyalty and their sharp and questioning minds. The other 8 were Space Marines, psychically gifted Astartes drawn from both the Loyalist legions and, remarkably, from the legions that had turned traitor. Warriors who had remained loyal to the Emperor, even as their brothers fell to chaos. These 12, gathered by Malcador from the wreckage of the heresy, would become the seed of the Emperor's secret weapon. The choosing of warriors from the traitor legions is a detail worth marking, for it speaks to what the Emperor sought. He did not want only the obviously loyal, the warriors of legions that had stayed true. He wanted the incorruptible, those whose souls were pure enough to resist chaos no matter what, and some of these were found among the legions that had fallen. Warriors who had seen their brothers turn to chaos and had refused to follow. These were beings tested by the worst temptation, who had stood in the presence of betrayal and held to their loyalty, the purest souls the heresy had revealed. From such warriors, tested and proven incorruptible, the Emperor would forge his weapon against the demon. When the 12 were gathered, the Emperor himself surveyed them, granting his approval and his consent to proceed. The 2 halves of his secret design then parted ways. The 4 mortal lords ventured off to lay the framework of a new institution, a secret police and intelligence service tasked with rooting out threats to the Imperium from within and without, which would become the Inquisition. And the 8 Space Marines were taken by Malcador toward a hidden fortress at the edge of the Sol system, to become the founders of a new chapter, the secret weapon against chaos. From these 12 sprang both the Inquisition and the Grey Knights, the 2 institutions born together in the last days of the heresy. Among those Malcador gathered were names that echo through the lore of the heresy. There were warriors who had served as the Sigillite's own agents during the war, his knights errant, sent on secret missions through the darkest days of the rebellion. There were survivors of the Eisenstein, the frigate that had brought the first warning of Horus's betrayal to Terra. Some were drawn from legions that had stayed loyal, and some, remarkably, from legions that had fallen. Warriors who had watched their own brothers turn to chaos and had refused to follow them into damnation. These were beings who had seen the worst the heresy could show and held to their loyalty, the proven and the incorruptible, gathered from the wreckage of the galaxy's betrayal. That the founders of the most incorruptible chapter included warriors from the traitor legions is a thing worth sitting with. The Emperor and Malcador did not judge these warriors by the legions they had come from, by the brothers who had fallen around them. They judged them by what they were: loyal, incorruptible, proven pure in the very fire of betrayal. A warrior who had stood among traitors and refused to turn was, in a sense, more proven than one who had never faced the temptation at all. From such warriors, tested in the worst crucible the galaxy had ever known, the Emperor forged the core of his secret weapon, the founders of the chapter that would never fall. The hidden fortress. The place the Emperor had chosen for his secret weapon was a moon at the edge of the Sol system, hidden by the greatest of sacrifices. The Emperor had prepared a concealed fortress monastery on Titan, the largest moon of the ringed gas giant Saturn. far out at the edge of the Sol system. The fortress had been made ready in secret, hidden under layers of rock and shrouded by powerful technologies, stocked with everything needed to found a new chapter. Vast stores of gene seed, the finest weapons and armor, and an army of servitors to maintain it. Everything had been prepared for the coming of the founders, the hidden cradle of the Emperor's secret weapon waiting at the edge of the Sol system for the warriors who would fill it. To keep Titan hidden through the chaos of the heresy, Malkador made a sacrifice. Through his supreme psychic power, the Sigillite hid Titan away in the warp itself, concealing the moon and its fortress from the traitor fleets that ranged through the Sol system during the Siege of Terra. While the fate of the Imperium was decided on Terra, Titan lay hidden in the Immaterium, its fortress and its secret safe from the traitors, kept out of reality until the danger had passed. The hiding of Titan was a great working, the moon removed from the world to protect the secret weapon growing upon it. And the warp does strange things to time. While Titan lay hidden in the Immaterium, time passed differently upon it than in the world outside. When the moon at last returned to reality, it emerged transformed, not with the original 8 Space Marines and their raw, untrained recruits, but with a full chapter of 1,000 trained battle brothers. Inside the warp, the years had run swift and strange, and the 8 founders had become 1,000 warriors, a complete chapter forged in the hidden time of the Immaterium. The secret weapon had been made ready in the warp, emerging whole and trained, 1,000 silver hunters ready to take up the war against chaos. The chapter of Silver Ghosts. When Titan returned from the warp with its 1,000 warriors, the chapter had to be given a place in the Imperium, and the way this was done reveals the depth of their secrecy. When Titan emerged from the Immaterium, the second founding was underway. The great expansion of the Space Marine legions into the smaller chapters that would defend the Imperium ever after. The newly formed Inquisition, directed by the same lords Malkador had chosen, secretly included the Grey Knights among the growing list of new chapters. They were designated Chapter 666, slipped into the records of the second founding, despite there being barely 400 chapters commissioned at the time. The number itself, 666, the number of the beast, marked them as something apart, the secret chapter hidden in the records, the silver hunters concealed within the founding of all the rest. Before Malkador departed, he appointed a leader for the new chapter. He named Janus, one of the 8 original Space Marines, to be the first Supreme Grand Master of the Grey Knights. Janus would lead the secret chapter in its first days, the first of the line of Grand Masters, who would command the Silver Hunters through the long war against chaos. The 8 founders became the first Grand Masters, each in time leading a brotherhood of the chapter, and Janus stood above them all as the first Supreme Grand Master, the leader of the Emperor's secret weapon. From the beginning, the Grey Knights were unlike any other chapter. Where other chapters served openly, their deeds sung across the Imperium, the Grey Knights served in absolute secrecy, embedded within the Inquisition as the chamber militant of the Ordo Malleus, the demon-hunting branch. They would move through the galaxy as an army of silver ghosts, fighting the horrors of the warp in battles no one would ever hear of, their victories recorded only on banners that only they could read. The secret chapter, hidden in the records as Chapter 666, would wage its war in the shadows, the silver hunters of demon kind known to almost no one in all the Imperium. The Emperor's gift. What made the Grey Knights unlike any other chapter lay in the source of their making. the gene seed from which they were grown. Every Space Marine is grown from gene seed, the genetic template implanted in a warrior to transform him into an Astartes. For all the other chapters, this gene seed traces back to one of the Primarchs, the demigod sons of the Emperor, each chapter carrying the genetic legacy of its Primarch progenitor. But the Grey Knights are different. Their gene seed was drawn from the genome of the Emperor of Mankind himself, rather than from any Primarch. The warriors of the secret chapter, grown from the genetic template of the Master of Mankind himself. They are, in this sense, the truest sons of the Emperor among the Astartes, grown from his own genome rather than that of a Primarch. The Grey Knights call this the Emperor's gift, and the name carries a meaning that outsiders sometimes mistake. To be grown from the Emperor's own gene seed is to carry within oneself a fragment of the Master of Mankind, a genetic inheritance of unmatched purity and strength. The Emperor's gift is the source of what the Grey Knights are. Their incorruptibility, their psychic power, their unbreakable loyalty, all flowing from the genome of the Emperor himself. Some outsiders, hearing the phrase, mistake it for a joke or a mere symbol, but the Grey Knights mean it as the simple truth. They are the Emperor's own, grown from his gift of his own genome, the purest sons of the Master of Mankind. This is the foundation of everything the Grey Knights would become. Grown from the Emperor's own genome, they would be incorruptible in a way no other chapter could match. Their souls pure enough to resist the temptations of chaos that had turned even Primarchs. They would all be psykers, gifted with the psychic power needed to fight the demon on its own ground. And they would be the secret weapon the Emperor had made in his last days, the silver hunters of demonkind, grown from his gift and hidden on Titan, ready to wage the endless war against the warp that the Emperor had foreseen. The incorruptibility is the thing most worth holding on to, for it is the heart of what the Grey Knights are. In 10,000 years of warfare against the demon, of fighting the worst horrors the warp can raise, of standing in the very presence of the gods of chaos, not a single Grey Knight has ever fallen to corruption. No other force in the Imperium can make this claim. Space Marines fall, whole chapters turn. Even Primarchs were drawn into the service of the Dark Gods. But the Grey Knights, grown from the Emperor's own genome, hardened by psychic conditioning and faith, have never once been corrupted, not in all the long millennia of their war. They are the one force the warp has never been able to turn, the incorruptible hunters of the demon. And every one of them is a psyker, which sets them apart from all other Astartes, where most Space Marines have no psychic gift, and where the few who do are kept apart as librarians. Every single Grey Knight is a potent psyker, trained to bend the powers of the warp to his will. This is a necessity of their purpose, for to fight the demon, a being of the warp, one must be able to reach into the warp oneself, to wield its power against its creatures. The Grey Knights are an entire chapter of psykers, each one able to call upon the immaterium, each one a warrior of both blade and mind, the psychic hunters who fight the demon, with powers drawn from the same warp that birthed it. Tomorrow, we look closer at the Silver Hunters themselves, and what makes them the deadliest enemies of the demon in all the Imperium. Sleep well. Tomorrow, we turn to the Silver Hunters, the psychic warriors of Titan, and the weapons they bear against the horrors of the warp. We have seen how the Grey Knights were made, the Emperor's secret weapon forged from his own genome and hidden on Titan. Tonight we look at what they became, the Silver Hunters themselves, the deadliest enemies of the demon in all the Imperium. We will sit with their silver armor and their psychic power, with the nemesis force weapons they carry, with the great dread knights that let a single warrior face a greater demon alone, and with the secrecy so absolute that even other space marines believe them a myth. For the Grey Knights are unlike any other warriors mankind has made, and the closer we look, the more singular they become. Tonight we sit with the Silver Hunters themselves, the psychic warriors of Titan, and the weapons they bear against the warp. The silver and the wards. The first thing that marks a Grey Knight is the silver, and the silver is more than a colour. The Grey Knights go to war clad in armour of burnished silver, the colour that gives them their name, an army of silver ghosts moving through the horrors of the warp. Their plate is the finest the Imperium can produce, wrought with the most advanced craft, decorated with the marks and wards of their order. The silver is a statement and a defence both, the colour of the secret chapter, the gleam of the hunters who fight the demon. Where other space marines wear the colours of their chapters, bright with heraldry and pride, the Grey Knights wear the cold silver of the demon hunters, the colour of warriors made for one terrible purpose. Beneath the armour lies a deeper protection, written into their very flesh. Every Grey Knight has silver purity wards inscribed under his skin, covering his entire body, sacred sigils and prayers worked into his flesh to ward away the corruption of the warp. These wards are a defense against the demonic, holy marks that protect the warrior's soul and body from the horrors he fights, the purity of the Grey Knight written into his skin in silver. The hunters of the demon carry their protection within them, the wards beneath the flesh a shield against the very enemy they exist to fight. There is a meaning in all this silver and ward that reaches to the heart of what the Grey Knights are. They fight the demon, the creature of the warp, the embodiment of chaos. And to fight such an enemy, they must be pure, protected, warded against the corruption that radiates from their foe. The silver armor, the purity wards, the holy marks worked into flesh and plate, are the armor of warriors who fight with the purity of their souls as much as with blade and bolt. The Grey Knights are sheathed in silver and sigil because they fight an enemy that corrupts, and their purity is as much a weapon and a shield as any blade they carry. The armor itself is often inscribed with sacred texts and litanies, prayers against the demon worked into the silver plate, so that the very surface of a Grey Knight is a wall of holy words. Banners and pennants carried into battle bear the marks of their order and the prayers of their faith, the silver hunters going to war wrapped in scripture and sigil. Every part of their war gear is a defense against corruption as much as a weapon against the enemy. The holy marks and sacred words turning each warrior into a fortress of faith against the horrors of the warp. The Grey Knight in his silver is a walking ward, a being armored in purity, the prayers and sigils of his order making him as much a holy thing as a warrior. This unity of war and faith runs through everything about them. For the Grey Knights, the fight against the demon is a holy war, a sacred duty, and their armor and weapons reflect it, every surface marked with the signs of their faith. They do not separate the warrior from the worshipper, the soldier from the holy man. They are both at once, warriors whose faith is a weapon and whose weapons are blessed. The silver hunters who fight the demon with blade and bolt and prayer all woven together, the purity of their souls as much a part of their arsenal as the nemesis weapons in their hands. The psychic warriors. The deepest thing that sets the Grey Knights apart from all other space marines is that every one of them is a psyker. Among the Adeptus Astartes, psychic gifts are rare, and those who possess them are set apart as librarians, kept separate, watched with a measure of caution. But the Grey Knights are an entire chapter of psykers. Every single battle brother a potent wielder of warp power, trained to bend the immaterium to his will. This is the rule among them rather than the exception. The whole chapter made of psykers, each warrior able to call upon the powers of the warp. The Grey Knights are unique in this, a chapter where the psychic gift that other chapters ration to a careful few is the common inheritance of every brother. This is a necessity of their purpose, woven into the reason they were made. The demon is a creature of the warp, a being of the immaterium given form in the world. To fight such a creature, to banish it, to destroy it, one must be able to reach into the warp oneself, to wield its power against its own creatures. A warrior of blade and bolt alone can wound a demon's flesh, but to banish it in full, to strike at what it is, one needs the power of the warp turned against it. The Grey Knights are psykers because the demon can only be fought with the very power that birthed it, the hunters wielding the immaterium against the creatures of the immaterium. And their psychic power is bound to their faith, which is part of what makes them so deadly to the demon. The Grey Knights wield their warp powers through an unshakable faith in the Emperor, a devotion so pure that it becomes a weapon in itself. Their psychic abilities, channeled through their faith, can banish demons, shatter the creatures of the warp, turn the immaterium against itself. The combination of psychic power and absolute faith makes the Grey Knights the deadliest banishers of demons in all the Imperium. Warriors whose minds and souls are weapons as deadly as any blade. The hunters who fight the demon with the power of the warp and the purity of their faith together. There is a terrible danger in what the Grey Knights are, and it makes their incorruptibility all the more remarkable. To be a psyker in the galaxy of the 41st Millennium is to be a doorway, a soul that touches the warp, a being through whom the demon might reach into the world. Most psykers are watched, feared, kept under guard, for the gift that lets them touch the immaterium also makes them vulnerable to its horrors, a crack through which corruption might enter. And the Grey Knights are an entire chapter of psykers, everyone a potential doorway, everyone touching the very warp that births the demons they fight. By all the ordinary rules of the Imperium, they should be the most vulnerable of all to corruption, and yet they are the least. This is the wonder of the Grey Knights, that they are an entire chapter of psykers, each one touching the warp, fighting the demon on its own ground, standing in the presence of the gods of chaos, and not one of them has ever fallen. Their purity of soul, their psychic conditioning, their faith, and the Emperor's gene seed together make them proof against the very corruption their psychic gifts should invite. They walk the most dangerous path in the Imperium, the path of the psyker who fights the demon, and they walk it without falling, the silver hunters whose souls remain pure even as they wield the power of the warp against its own creatures. The Nemesis Force weapons. The characteristic weapons of the Grey Knights are blades and hammers of terrible power, made for the banishing of demons, the Nemesis Force weapons. The Nemesis Force weapon is the signature arm of the Grey Knights, a weapon that channels the psychic power of the warrior who wields it. These are blades, halberds, hammers and swords, each one a force weapon that focuses and amplifies the psychic might of the Grey Knight, turning his warp power into a physical strike that can shatter a demon's form. A nemesis weapon in the hands of a Grey Knight is a thing of terrible power. The warrior's psychic strength channeled through the blade into a blow that can banish the creatures of the warp. They are made for one purpose: the destruction of the demon, the unmaking of the warp's horrors. The weapons of the Grey Knights are the finest in all the Imperium, and the way they come by them tells us something about the Order. Of all the armies of the Imperium, the Grey Knights boast the most advanced and deadly weaponry, born of ancient pacts with the Adeptus Mechanicus, and even, remarkably, with some alien factions. The threat of the demonic is considered to outweigh even the hatred of the Xenos, and so the Grey Knights have made pacts that other Imperial forces never would, gathering the finest weapons from whatever source could provide them. Most of their war gear is produced on their aligned forge world of Deimos, which orbits Titan alongside the fortress moon, forging the silver weapons of the demon hunters. These weapons reflect the singular purpose of the Order. Everything the Grey Knights carry is made for the war against the demon. The Nemesis weapons forged to banish the creatures of the warp. The war gear gathered from every possible source to make the hunters as deadly as they can be against their one terrible enemy. The Grey Knights bear the finest weapons in the Imperium because they fight the worst enemy in the galaxy. The deadliest arms made for the deadliest foe. The Silver Hunters armed with every weapon that ancient pacts and forbidden craft could place in their hands. The Nemesis weapons come in many forms, each suited to a different warrior and a different way of fighting. There are Nemesis Force Swords, blades of focused psychic power. Nemesis Force Halberds, the long reach favoured by many of the brothers. Nemesis Warding Staves and Falchions and Great Hammers, each one a focus for the warrior's psychic might. Whatever the form, the principle is the same. The weapon channels the Grey Knight's warp power into the strike, so that the blow lands with the banishing power of the warrior's mind and soul, as well as the force of the blade. A demon struck by a nemesis weapon is struck in his very being as well as his flesh, the psychic force of the blow unmaking the creature, banishing it back to the warp from which it came. This is what makes the Grey Knights so deadly to the demon. Beyond all other warriors of the Imperium, an ordinary blade can wound a demon's borrowed form, can drive it back, can hurt it. But a demon banished only in its flesh will return, its essence reforming in the warp, ready to manifest again. The nemesis weapons of the Grey Knights strike deeper, banishing the demon's essence itself, unmaking the creature so that it cannot easily return. The Silver Hunters do not merely fight the demon. They unmake it, banish it, strike at the warp stuff of its being with weapons forged for that one purpose. The nemesis arms that make the Grey Knights the truest banishers of the demon in all the galaxy. The Brotherhoods. The Grey Knights are organized in a way that sets them apart from other chapters, reflecting both their small numbers and their singular purpose. The chapter numbers around 1,000 battle brothers, the standard strength of a Space Marine chapter, but they are organized differently from the Codex-compliant chapters that follow the teachings of Guilliman. Where most chapters are divided into 10 companies, the Grey Knights are divided into 8 brotherhoods, each a self-sufficient fighting force of roughly 100 warriors. Each brotherhood is led by a Grand Master, and the chapter has 8 of these, 1 for each brotherhood, each a commander of unmatched skill and power. Above them all stands the Supreme Grand Master, the leader of the whole chapter, the heir to Janus, who first held the title. The Grand Masters are among the most powerful beings in the Imperium. Each is an unmatched demon slayer, wearing the heavy Terminator armor of the elite, wielding a powerful nemesis force weapon, and each is a mighty psyker as well as a peerless warrior. Few demons have ever stood against a Grand Master and survived, the commanders of the Grey Knights numbering among the deadliest banishers of the warp's horrors in all the galaxy. When such a being falls, the loss is mourned by the whole chapter and the Ordo Malleus, Though no common citizen will ever know the name of the hero who died, the deeds of the Grand Masters hidden like all the deeds of the secret chapter. There is one order within the Grey Knights, purer even than the rest, and it is worth marking. The Purifiers are an order of Grey Knights with the purest souls of all, believed to be incorruptible even by the standards of a chapter that has never once fallen to chaos. In a chapter already defined by its purity, the Purifiers stand as the purest of the pure, the warriors whose souls are most unblemished, most resistant to the corruption of the warp. They are the holiest of the Silver Hunters, the purest souls in the purest chapter, set apart even among warriors who are already set apart from all the rest of the Imperium. The Dread Knight. Among the weapons of the Grey Knights is one made for a duel that few warriors could ever survive, the Nemesis Dread Knight. The Nemesis Dread Knight is a great suit of mechanized armor, a towering construct that a single Grey Knight pilots into battle, designed for one terrible purpose, to face a greater demon in single combat. The greater demons are the mightiest creatures of the warp, the most powerful servants of the gods of chaos, beings of such power that ordinary warriors cannot stand against them. And the Dread Knight is the Grey Knight's answer, a huge armored frame that lets a single warrior meet a greater demon blade to blade, towering over even the dreadnoughts of other chapters, made to fight the most terrible creatures the warp can raise. There is something in the Dread Knight that captures the spirit of the Grey Knights. To build a war machine whose purpose is to let one warrior duel a greater demon is to declare a kind of defiance, a refusal to be cowed even by the mightiest horrors of the warp. The Grey Knights do not flee the greater demon. They build a machine to fight it one against one, to meet the most terrible creature of chaos in single combat and banish it. The Dread Knight is the expression of their whole purpose, to face the worst the warp can raise and destroy it, to stand against the greater demon where any other warrior would fall. And the Dread Knight reflects something of the Grey Knight's relationship with their own dead. Other chapters honor their fallen by interring them in dreadnoughts, war machines that carry the bodies of dying heroes into battle for centuries more. But the Grey Knights see this differently. They do not wish to be kept alive in a machine. They wish to be laid to rest in the crypts of Titan with their brothers, in the hallowed halls of the glorious dead. And so, the Dread Knight is a thing a living warrior pilots, rather than a tomb for a dying one, the Grey Knights preferring death and rest among their brothers to the long half-life of the dreadnought. Tomorrow, we go to Titan itself, the hidden fortress at the edge of the Sol system, and the strange and secret world the Grey Knights have built there. Sleep well. Tomorrow we climb to the Citadel of Titan, the basalt fortress of the Silver Hunters, and the forbidden knowledge kept within its walls. Far out at the edge of the Sol system, on the largest moon of ringed Saturn, stands a fortress carved entirely of black basalt, hidden from almost all the galaxy. This is the Citadel of Titan, the home of the Grey Knights, the secret heart of the demon hunters. Within its walls lie the most forbidden knowledge in the Imperium, the bodies of the glorious dead, and the silent rituals of a chapter that almost no one knows exists. Tonight we climb to the Citadel of Titan and walk through the strange and secret world the Silver Hunters have built at the edge of the Sol system. Tonight we sit with the Citadel of Titan, the basalt fortress of the Silver Hunters, and the secrets kept within its walls. The Fortress of Basalt. The home of the Grey Knights is a place of black stone and deep secrecy, carved into the largest moon of Saturn. The fortress monastery of the Grey Knights stands on Titan, the largest moon of the ringed gas giant Saturn, far out at the edge of the Sol system. It is carved entirely of basalt, the dark volcanic stone giving the fortress its grim and ancient aspect, a citadel of black rock standing against the cold and the dark of the outer system. The Citadel of Titan is the heart of the chapter, the home of the Silver Hunters, the place from which they go out to wage their secret war, and to which they return to rest among their brothers. It is a fortress and a monastery both, a place of war and worship together, the basalt heart of the demon hunters. Within the fortress hang the banners and pennants of the chapter, the marks of its victories and its sacrifices across the long war against the demon. But these banners are unlike those of any other chapter, for the names upon them mean nothing to anyone outside the Order. The campaigns they commemorate are secret, the battles fought in shadow, the victories won in wars no one else ever knew were waged. A visitor to the Citadel, were any ever permitted, would see banner after banner honouring deeds that no history records, campaigns whose names only the Grey Knights would recognise. The secret war made visible only within the walls of the secret fortress. The location itself is a guarded secret, known only to the Ordo Malleus and the highest powers of the Imperium. Titan is surrounded by the rings of Saturn and by several other moons, each one held by the Ordo Malleus for its own dark purposes. The whole region is a private preserve of the Inquisition, hidden, guarded, sealed away from the rest of the Imperium. The Citadel of Titan does not stand open to the galaxy. It stands hidden at the edge of the Sol system, its location secret, its existence unknown to almost all, the concealed heart of the most secret chapter in the Imperium. The moons of the Ordo Malleus. Titan does not stand alone. Around it hang other moons, each held by the Ordo Malleus, for purposes as secret and grim as the Grey Knights themselves. The moons of Saturn that surround Titan are confidential holdings of the Ordo Malleus, each given over to a dark and secret purpose. There is Mimas, which serves as the prison and execution centre of the Ordo Malleus, the place where the Order keeps and disposes of those it must. There is Enceladus, home to the leaders of the Ordo Malleus and the most influential of its inquisitors, the seat of the demon hunter's power. And there are other moons besides, each held for some purpose of the Order. The whole region around Saturn a hidden domain of the Inquisition's most secret branch. This cluster of secret moons tells us something about the world the Grey Knights inhabit. They do not stand alone as a chapter apart. They are embedded in a whole hidden architecture of the Ordo Malleus, a region of secret prisons and hidden seats of power, a domain given over to the war against the demon and all who would wield the power of chaos. The Grey Knights are the militant arm of this hidden domain, the Silver Hunters who go out from Titan to fight, while around them hang the prisons and the seats and the secret holdings of the Order they serve. The fortress of the demon hunters sits at the heart of a whole hidden world. There is a grimness to this architecture that suits the Order it serves. Mimas, the prison and place of execution. Enceladus, the seat of the hidden masters. Titan, the fortress of the Silver Hunters. The moons of Saturn, ringed and cold and far from the light, hold the secret machinery of the war against chaos, the prisons and the fortresses and the seats of power of the Ordo Malleus. It is a fitting home for the demon hunters, this cold and hidden cluster at the edge of the Sol system, a domain of secrets and grim purpose, the hidden heart of the Imperium's war against the warp. There is a reason the Ordo Malleus chose the edge of the Sol system for its secret domain, close to Terra, and yet hidden in the cold and the dark. To be near Terra is to be near the heart of the Imperium, near the Emperor on his golden throne, near the center of the power the demon hunters serve. And yet to be out at Saturn, ringed and remote, is to be hidden, far from prying eyes, sealed away in the cold reaches of the outer system. The Ordo Malleus chose a domain both close and hidden, near the heart of the Imperium, and yet secret from it, the perfect home for an order that must serve the Imperium, while keeping its terrible work hidden from almost all who live within it. The cold of the outer system suits the Order in another way too. The war against the demon is a cold and lonely war, fought in shadow, without glory, without thanks, and the home of the demon hunters matches it. Cold, remote, hidden, a cluster of ringed moons far from the warmth and light of the inner worlds. The Grey Knights and the Ordo Malleus dwell at the edge of the Sol system, in the cold and the dark, fitting their grim and secret war. The Silver Hunters making their home in the remote and frozen reaches where their hidden labor can be carried out unseen. The chapter that is a myth. The secrecy of the Grey Knights goes beyond their fortress and their moons. It is woven into their very existence, so complete that even other space marines doubt they are real. The Grey Knights operate in a secrecy more absolute than any other force in the Imperium. They answer only to the Ordo Malleus and to the Emperor, operating beyond the knowledge of the Adeptus Terra, beyond the awareness even of the High Lords of Terra, who rule the Imperium in the Emperor's name, the vast machinery of the Imperial government, the lords and administrators who command 1,000,000 worlds, mostly do not know that the Grey Knights exist. The Silver Hunters move through the galaxy unseen by the very Imperium they protect, hidden even from its highest powers. So complete is this secrecy that many Space Marine chapters believe the Grey Knights to be a myth, if they have heard of them at all. To most of the Adeptus Astartes, the Silver Demon Hunters are a legend, a rumor, a story told of a secret chapter that fights the warp in the shadows, a tale that may or may not be true. The Grey Knights are so hidden that even their fellow Space Marines, the warriors who might fight alongside them, doubt they are real. Only the Inquisition and the chapter masters of the Astartes are permitted to know the truth. The existence of the Grey Knights a secret kept even from most of the superhuman warriors who defend the Imperium. This secrecy is no accident. It is a deliberate and guarded thing, protected with terrible ferocity. The war against the demon is a war that must be fought in shadow, for the very knowledge of the demon is dangerous, and the existence of a chapter that fights it must be hidden lest that knowledge spread. The Grey Knights are secret because their war is secret, because the demon is a thing the Imperium dares not speak of openly, because the truth of chaos is a poison that must be contained. And so the Silver Hunters fight unseen, a chapter that is a myth even to its allies, the most hidden warriors in all the Imperium. The Librarium Daemonica. Within the Citadel of Titan lies the most dangerous library in the Imperium, a repository of knowledge that would destroy a lesser mind. The fortress monastery houses the Librarium Daemonica, the foremost repository of warp lore and demonology in all the Imperium. It is a forbidding place, filled with tens of thousands of ancient tomes of diabolic lore, the accumulated knowledge of the Ordo Malleus gathered across the millennia. Here are kept the names of demons, the secrets of the warp, the forbidden knowledge of chaos that the Grey Knights and the Ordo Malleus have gathered in their long war. The Librarium. Daemonica is the memory of that war, the store of everything the demon hunters have learned about their enemy, kept in the heart of the secret fortress. This knowledge is as dangerous as any weapon, and more dangerous than most. To know the names of demons, to understand the workings of the warp, to read the forbidden law of chaos, is to court corruption, to open one's mind to the very horror one seeks to fight. The tomes of the librarian Demonica hold knowledge that would drive a lesser mind to madness, would corrupt a weaker soul, would open a doorway for the demon into any reader less pure than a grey knight. The library is forbidden because its knowledge is poison, a store of lore so dangerous that only the purest souls in the Imperium can be trusted to read it. And this is part of why the Grey Knights, and they alone, can keep it. They are pure enough, warded enough, strong enough in soul, to study the forbidden law without falling to it. Where another would be corrupted by the knowledge of the demon, the Grey Knights can read it, learn it, use it against their enemy, their purity protecting them from the poison of the law they study. The Librarium Demonica is kept by the only beings who could safely keep it, the incorruptible hunters who can hold the most dangerous knowledge in the Imperium without being destroyed by it, turning the forbidden law of chaos into a weapon against chaos itself. The knowledge in the Librarium is a weapon as surely as any nemesis blade. To banish a demon, it helps to know its true name, its nature, its weaknesses, the secret workings of its existence. The Grey Knights study the demon as a scholar studies his subject, learning the names and the natures of the warp's horrors, gathering the lore that lets them fight their enemy more deadly. The Librarium Demonica is the armory of this knowledge, the store of everything the demon hunters have learned about how to destroy their foe, a weapon of lore kept beside the weapons of silver and force. The Grey Knights fight the demon with knowledge as much as with blade, and the Librarium is where that knowledge is kept. There is a danger in this that the Imperium as a whole fears, and it is why such knowledge is forbidden to all but a few. To study the demon is to risk becoming fascinated by it, to risk the slow corruption that comes of gazing too long into the warp. Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus have fallen this way, drawn into the very darkness they studied, becoming the radicals and heretics they once hunted. The Librarium Demonica holds a knowledge that has destroyed even mighty souls, a lore so dangerous that to keep it at all is a risk, and the Grey Knights keep it, guard it, study it, the one chapter pure enough to hold the most dangerous library in the Imperium without being consumed by what it contains. The Crypts of the Dead. Beneath the fortress lies the place where every Grey Knight wishes to come at the last, the Crypts of the Glorious Dead. Beneath the Citadel of Titan lies a cool, damp crypt, and it is here that every Grey Knight wishes to come to rest. Almost every member of the chapter, when he falls, will have his body recovered and brought to this crypt beneath the Emperor's temple, to be laid among his brothers in the hallowed halls of the glorious dead. The crypt is the final home of the Grey Knights, the place where the Silver Hunters come to rest when their war is done, the resting place of the fallen brothers gathered beneath the basalt fortress. As a final tribute to those who have given their lives, the names of the dead are carved into a great basalt wall in the heart of the fortress. The wall holds the names of all who have fallen, carved in ceremony, a memorial in black stone to the Silver Hunters who died in the war against the demon. Among these names are some of the greatest heroes the Imperium has ever known, warriors who died in the most heroic circumstances imaginable, defending mankind against the worst horrors of the warp. And yet, like all things concerning the Grey Knights, these names will remain almost wholly unknown, The heroes of the secret chapter remembered only on a wall that almost no one will ever see. There is a poignancy in this that runs through the whole nature of the Grey Knights. Their greatest heroes, the warriors who gave their lives to save mankind from the demon, are remembered only in secret, their names carved on a hidden wall in a hidden fortress, their deeds known to no one outside the Order. They die unsung, these silver heroes, their sacrifices invisible to the galaxy they died to protect. The crypt beneath Titan is full of the bodies of heroes whose names the Imperium will never know. The glorious dead of the secret chapter, remembered only by their brothers, mourned only in the basalt heart of their hidden home. Consider what this means for the warriors themselves. A hero of any other chapter might hope for glory, for his deeds to be sung across the Imperium, his name honored by the billions he saved. But a Grey Knight has no such hope. He fights in secret, dies in secret, and is remembered in secret, his greatest sacrifices known to no one but his brothers. The galaxy he saves will never thank him, never know his name, never learn that he existed at all. The Silver Hunters give everything for a humanity that will never know they gave it, dying unsung in a war the Imperium does not know is being fought, and yet they wish for nothing more than this hidden rest. The Grey Knights do not crave the glory other warriors seek. They wish only to be brought home to the crypts of Titan, to be laid among their brothers, to have their names carved on the basalt wall where only their Order will read them. This is the reward they want. Rest among their own, remembrance by those who understand, a place in the hallowed halls of the glorious dead beneath the fortress. The Silver Hunters ask for no glory from the galaxy, only the quiet honor of resting among their brothers in the secret heart of Titan, the unsung heroes content to be remembered only by their own. Tomorrow, we look at how a Grey Knight is made, the grueling path from chosen recruit to Silver Hunter, and the terrible price of the purity they bear. Sleep well. Tomorrow, we follow the making of a Grey Knight, the testing and the forging and the price of an incorruptible soul. The Grey Knights have never fallen. In 10,000 years of war against the Daemon, of fighting the worst horrors the warp can raise, of standing in the very presence of the gods of chaos, not a single Grey Knight has ever been corrupted. This is the wonder at the heart of the chapter. And tonight we look at how it is achieved. The grueling and terrible making of a Grey Knight, the testing and the forging and the erasing that produces an incorruptible soul. For the purity of the Grey Knights does not come free. It is bought at a price, and tonight we sit with what that price is. Tonight we sit with the purity of the soul, the making of an incorruptible warrior, and the cost of a soul that can never fall. The choosing. The making of a Grey Knight begins with a choosing, a search for the rarest and purest of souls. The Grey Knights cannot recruit as other chapters do, taking promising youths and training them into warriors. They need something rarer, recruits of immense psychic potential, for the whole chapter is made of psykers and souls of such purity that the corruption of the warp can find no purchase in them. The search for such recruits ranges across the galaxy, seeking out the rare individuals who possess both the psychic gift and the unblemished soul that a Grey Knight requires. These are the rarest of all recruits, the ones who can become demon hunters, the few whose minds are strong enough and whose souls are pure enough for the terrible purpose ahead. The psychic potential is essential, for a Grey Knight who could not wield the warp could not fight the demon. But the purity of soul matters as much, perhaps more. A psyker is a doorway to the warp, and a psyker of impure soul is a doorway through which the demon might enter. The Grey Knights need recruits whose souls are strong enough to touch the warp without being corrupted by it, pure enough to wield its power without falling to its horrors. The choosing seeks both gifts together, the psychic strength to fight the demon, and the purity of soul to do so without being destroyed. Only those rare few who possess both can become Grey Knights. This is why the chapter is so small, and why each recruit is so precious. The combination of psychic gift and pure soul is vanishingly rare, found in only a handful of individuals across the vastness of the galaxy. The Grey Knights cannot make warriors from common stock. They must find the rare souls who can bear the burden, the few whose minds and souls together fit them for the war against the demon. Each recruit chosen is a treasure, one of the few in all the galaxy who could become a silver hunter, sought out across the stars and brought to Titan for the terrible making that lies ahead. The search itself is a thing of patience and secrecy. The Grey Knights and the Ordo Malleus watch for the rare souls they need, seeking out the psykers of greatest power and purest soul, often taking them from among those the Imperium would otherwise destroy. For in the Imperium, a psyker is a dangerous thing, and many are killed or sacrificed to feed the Astronomicon, or sent to the black ships of the Inquisition. Among these gathered psykers, the very strongest and purest might be marked for a different fate, taken instead to Titan, chosen to become Grey Knights. The chapter draws its recruits from the rarest stock in the galaxy, the psykers pure enough and strong enough to bear the making, found among the many and chosen for the few. There is a fittingness in this, that the Grey Knights are made from souls that might otherwise have been lost. The Imperium fears its psykers, kills them, sacrifices them, sees in them only danger. And the Grey Knights take the rarest of these feared souls and make of them the Imperium's greatest protectors, the incorruptible hunters of the demon. The very gift that marks a psyker for death in the Imperium marks the rarest of them for elevation to the Silver Chapter, the feared turned into the saviors, the dangerous souls remade into the purest warriors mankind has ever fielded against the demon. The grueling path. Once chosen, a recruit faces a path of testing so harsh that few could survive it, a forging meant to produce a soul that can never break. The making of a Grey Knight is a grueling and torturous process, a selection and a training without equal in all the Imperium. The recruit is tested past the limits of endurance, his body and mind and soul pushed to breaking and beyond. The process designed to find any weakness, any flaw, any crack through which corruption might one day enter. Those who fail are lost. Only those who endure, who prove themselves strong enough in body and mind and soul, pass through to become Grey Knights. The path is meant to be survivable only by the strongest, the testing so harsh that it produces warriors of unbreakable resolve. The training accustoms the recruit to the horrors he will face, hardening him against the terrors of the warp. A Grey Knight must be able to stand in the presence of the demon, to gaze upon horrors that would shatter an ordinary mind, to fight the creatures of chaos without fear or weakness. And so the training exposes him to these horrors, hardens him against them, teaches him to face the warp's terrors and remain unbroken. The making of a Grey Knight is in part a making of a mind that cannot be broken by fear, a soul that cannot be shaken by the worst the warp can show. Alongside the testing comes the standard transformation of a space marine, the implantation of the gene seed, and the growing of the organs that make a man into an Astartes. But for the Grey Knights, this is the Emperor's own gene seed, the purest genetic inheritance in the Imperium, drawn from the genome of the master of mankind himself. The recruit is remade into a superhuman warrior, his body transformed, his strength raised beyond the human, and woven into him the purity of the Emperor's own gene seed. The making of a Grey Knight is the making of a space marine, and something more, a warrior transformed by the purest gene seed in the Imperium, and tested past the limits that would break any other. The training never lets the recruit forget what he is being made for. From the first, he is steeped in the lore of the Daemon, taught the nature of the enemy he will fight, hardened against the horror of the warp. He learns the names of the chapter's foes, the workings of chaos, the terrible truth of the gods of the warp that the rest of the Imperium is forbidden to know. And he is taught to face this knowledge without flinching, to hold the truth of the Daemon in his mind without being broken or corrupted by it. The making of a Grey Knight is a making of a warrior who can know the worst and remain unbroken, who can stand in full knowledge of the Daemon and never waver. And through it all runs the testing of the soul, the constant search for any flaw. At every stage, the recruit is watched, tested, examined for any weakness, any crack, any sign that corruption might one day find purchase in him. Those who show the slightest flaw are removed, lost, cast out, for the Grey Knights can afford no weakness in their ranks. Only the purest pass through, the few whose souls prove strong enough at every test, who show no crack through which the Daemon might enter. The grueling path is a filter of terrible fineness, letting through only the purest of the pure, the rare souls who can become incorruptible hunters of the Daemon. The erasing. There is a part of the making of a Grey Knight that is darker than the rest, and it is the price of their absolute loyalty, the erasing of who they were. Upon completing the grueling process, the new Grey Knight has the majority of his memories and his personality erased. The recruit who was chosen, the individual who came to Titan with a name and a history and a self, is unmade, his memories stripped away, his personality dissolved, so that what remains is a warrior of absolute and unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. The erasing is done to ensure that loyalty, to remove anything in the warrior's past or his self that might one day be a weakness, a doubt, a crack through which corruption could enter. The Grey Knight is made loyal by being emptied of the self that might have been disloyal. This is one of the darkest things about the Grey Knights, and it is worth sitting with. To make a warrior incorruptible, the chapter takes away who he was. His memories, his history, the person he had been, all are erased, dissolved, removed, so that nothing remains but the warrior and his loyalty. The recruit who came to Titan, whoever he had been, is gone, replaced by a Grey Knight who remembers little of his past self, whose personality has been remade into the unwavering devotion of a demon hunter. The price of an incorruptible soul is the soul that was there before, erased to make room for the warrior. There is a terrible logic to this, and a terrible cost. A warrior with no past has nothing the demon can use against him. No loved ones to threaten, no memories to twist, no self to tempt. The erasing removes the handholds by which corruption might climb into the soul, leaving a warrior who is only his loyalty and his purpose, nothing more. But what is lost is a person, an individual, a self that once was. The Grey Knights are incorruptible in part because they have been emptied of the selves that might have been corrupted, their purity bought with the erasure of who they were. It is a price paid in identity, in memory, in the self, the cost of a soul that can never fall. The question of the price. The erasing of the self raises a question that hangs over the whole chapter, and it is worth sitting with, even if it has no easy answer. Is it right to make a warrior by unmaking a person? The Grey Knights are incorruptible, the purest warriors in the Imperium. the one force that has never fallen to chaos in 10,000 years. And this purity is bought in part by taking from each warrior the self he once was, erasing his memories, dissolving his personality, emptying him of the individual he had been. The recruit who came to Titan is, in a sense, killed in the making, his self taken away so that a loyal warrior can be put in its place. The Grey Knight who fights the demon is not wholly the person who was chosen. He is what remains after the person has been erased. The Imperium would say the price is worth it, and by the Imperium's grim logic it is. The demon is the worst enemy mankind faces, the corruption of chaos the gravest threat to the species. To have a force that can fight it without ever falling is worth almost any price, and the erasure of a few warriors' memories is a small cost against the salvation of mankind. The Grey Knights themselves would not question it, for their loyalty is absolute, their devotion to the war against the demon complete. By every measure the Imperium values, the making of the Grey Knights is justified, the price of their purity a price worth paying. And yet there is a sorrow in it that the grim logic does not erase. Each Grey Knight was once someone, a person with a name and a history and a self, and that someone was taken away to make a warrior. Whatever the necessity, whatever the justification, a person was unmade, an individual erased, a self dissolved to produce an incorruptible soldier. The Grey Knights are magnificent, the purest and most incorruptible warriors mankind has made. And they are, each of them, a person who was erased, a self taken away in the making, the cost of their purity written in the identities that were dissolved to forge them. It is the Grimdark bargain at the heart of the chapter, a soul that can never fall, bought with the self that was there before. The wards beneath the skin. The final protection woven into a Grey Knight is written into his very flesh, a last defense against the corruption he will spend his life fighting. As part of his making, the new Grey Knight is implanted with silver purity wards beneath his skin, sacred sigils worked into his flesh to cover his entire body. These wards are a final defense against the demonic, holy marks that protect the warrior from the corruption of the warp, written into his skin in silver, where the erasing protects his mind and the gene seed protects his soul. The wards protect his flesh, a last layer of defense against the enemy he will fight for the rest of his life. The Grey Knight is warded inside and out, his memories erased, his soul made pure, his flesh inscribed with silver sigils against the demon. This completes the making of a Grey Knight, a warrior protected against corruption in every part of his being. His gene seed is the Emperor's own, the purest in the Imperium. His mind has been emptied of the past that might have been a weakness. His soul has been tested and proven incorruptible. And his flesh is inscribed with silver wards against the demon. Every layer of him is a defense against the corruption he exists to fight. The Grey Knight made pure in body and mind and soul, warded against the warp in every part of his being. And the result is the wonder we began with. A warrior who can never fall. In 10,000 years, with all these protections woven into every Grey Knight, not a single one has ever been corrupted by chaos. The gene seed, the testing, the erasing, the wards, all together produce a soul that the warp cannot turn. A warrior who can stand in the presence of the gods of chaos and remain pure. The price is terrible, the self erased, the past taken, the individual emptied to make room for the warrior. But the result is a soul that can never fall, an incorruptible hunter of the demon, the purest warrior the Imperium has ever made. It is worth pausing on how extraordinary this record is in the galaxy of the 41st millennium. Everywhere else, corruption creeps in. Space Marines fall. Whole chapters turn to chaos. Inquisitors meant to hunt the demon are seduced by the very lore they study. Planets, sectors, whole swathes of the Imperium are lost to the ruinous powers. The warp is patient, and it finds the cracks in even the strongest souls. And against all of this, in 10,000 years of fighting the demon at close quarters, of standing in the warp's very presence, the Grey Knights have held. Not one has fallen. Not one crack has opened. The single most incorruptible force in a galaxy defined by corruption, holding pure across 10 millennia of the worst the warp can offer. This is the achievement that all the terrible price buys, and it is why the Imperium pays it. A force that can fight the demon without ever falling is beyond value. The one weapon against chaos that chaos can never turn. Every other defense the Imperium raises against the warp can be corrupted, turned, lost. But the Grey Knights hold, the one constant in the war against the demon, the Silver Hunters who can be trusted absolutely because they have proven, across 10,000 years, that they can never fall. The purity bought at such a terrible price is the thing that makes them the Imperium's surest weapon against its worst enemy, the incorruptible hunters who hold the line that no other force can be trusted to hold. Tomorrow, we turn to the masters the Grey Knights serve, the Inquisition and the Ordo Malleus, and the secret war they wage together against the demon. Sleep well. Tomorrow we sit with the Ordo Malleus, the demon hunters of the Inquisition, and the masters of the Silver Chapter. The Grey Knights do not stand alone. They are the militant arm of a greater order, the demon-hunting branch of the most feared institution in the Imperium, the Ordo Malleus of the Holy Inquisition. Born from the same gathering that founded the Grey Knights, sworn to the same war against the demon, the Ordo Malleus is the hidden hand that directs the Silver Hunters, the masters of the secret chapter. Tonight we sit with the Inquisition and the Ordo Malleus, the demon hunters who command the Grey Knights, and the terrible secrecy that binds them all together. Tonight we sit with the Ordo Malleus, the demon hunters of the Inquisition, and the hidden masters of the Silver Chapter. The birth of the Inquisition. The Inquisition and the Grey Knights were born together from the same gathering, in the same dark days at the end of the heresy. We have seen how Malcador the Sigillite gathered 12 champions in the last days of the Horus heresy, 8 Space Marines who would become the founders of the Grey Knights, and 4 mortal lords and administrators of steely and inquiring nature. While the 8 Marines went to Titan to found the secret chapter, the 4 mortals went to lay the framework of a new institution, a secret police and intelligence service, tasked with rooting out threats to the Imperium from within and without. This institution would become the Inquisition, the Imperium's dread agency of secret power, born from the same gathering that founded the Grey Knights. The Inquisition was the Emperor's answer to a hard truth the heresy had taught, that the gravest threats to the Imperium could come from within. The heresy had been a betrayal, a corruption that grew in the heart of the Imperium itself, the Emperor's own sons turning against him. To guard against such threats in the future, the Imperium needed an institution that could look inward as well as outward, that could root out corruption, heresy, and treason wherever it grew, even in the highest places. The Inquisition was made to be this institution, the watchers who would guard the Imperium against the enemy within, as well as the enemy without. The Inquisitors who served this order were granted authority almost beyond limit. An Inquisitor answers to no ordinary law, bows to no ordinary lord, wields an authority that can command planets, fleets, and armies in the name of the Emperor. They are the secret masters of the Imperium, the dread agents whose word can condemn a world, whose authority humbles even the High Lords of Terror. From the four mortals Malcador gathered sprang this whole order, the Inquisition, the virtually omnipotent secret power that would guard the Imperium against all its enemies, hidden and revealed. Arsen Til, the Demon Hunters. Within the Inquisition, one branch was made for the war against the demon, the oldest and most secret of all, the Ordo Malleus. The Ordo Malleus is the demon-hunting branch of the Inquisition, the order whose task is the destruction of demons and all who wield the corrupt power of chaos. It is the oldest branch of the Inquisition, the original heart of the order, formed in the days after Horus launched his rebellion, when the Emperor first asked Malcador to find him men and women of utmost loyalty to investigate the threats to the Imperium. From that first gathering grew the Ordo Malleus, the Demon Hunters, the branch of the Inquisition, made for the one enemy the Emperor feared above all others. The task of the Ordo Malleus is the destruction of chaos made manifest. Its inquisitors and their agents hunt the demon in real space, destroying the physical manifestations of chaos wherever they appear, and they hunt the mortal servants of chaos as well, the cultists and sorcerers and traitors who would summon the demon into the world. The Ordo Malleus stands against the demon and all who serve it, the hidden hunters who guard the Imperium against the corruption of the warp. The demon hunters, whose war is the same war the Grey Knights were made to fight. There is a detail of history worth marking here. Though the seed of the Ordo Malleus was planted in the days of the heresy, the branch was not formally established until the mid-32nd millennium, centuries after the heresy ended, in the wake of the War of the Beast. The great Orc invasion of that war had nearly destroyed the Imperium, and in its aftermath, the Inquisition was reordered, its branches formalized. The Ordo Malleus became one of the two original Ordos Majoris, the great branches of the Inquisition, the demon hunters taking their formal place alongside the Ordo Xenos, the hunters of the alien. The order that had begun in the heresy was made whole in the aftermath of the War of the Beast. The Inquisition would grow other branches in time, each hunting a different enemy of mankind. The Ordo Xenos hunts the alien, the Xenos races that threaten the Imperium from without. The Ordo Hereticus, formed later, hunts the heretic within, the traitor and the rogue psyker, and the corrupt servant of the Imperium. But the Ordo Malleus was the first, the original heart of the Inquisition, the demon hunters whose war against chaos was the reason the whole order was founded. The Inquisition began as an answer to the demon, and the Ordo Malleus is that original answer, the oldest and the gravest branch, the hunters of the worst enemy mankind faces. And of all the branches, the Ordo Malleus is the most secret, for its enemy is the most dangerous to know. The Ordo Xenos may speak of the alien, for to know of the Xenos is no great peril. The Ordo Hereticus may pursue the heretic in the open, for heresy is a known danger. But the Ordo Malleus must work in shadow, for the very knowledge of its enemy is a poison, the truth of the demon a danger in itself. The demon hunters are the most hidden of all the Inquisition's branches, their war the most secret, their enemy the one that the Imperium dares not even name, the Ordo Malleus carrying the gravest and most hidden duty in all the order. The Chamber Militant. The Grey Knights serve the Ordo Malleus as its sword, the military arm of the demon hunters, the Chamber Militant. The Grey Knights are the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Malleus, the military force that the demon hunters wield against their enemy. When an inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus faces a foe too great for his own agents, when a demon manifests that must be banished, when a force of chaos rises that must be destroyed, the inquisitor can call upon the Grey Knights, the Silver Hunters who serve as the militant arm of the Order. The Ordo Malleus is the mind and the will of the war against the demon, and the Grey Knights are its sword, the force that strikes when the demon must be destroyed. This bond between the Inquisition and the Grey Knights runs back to their shared founding. They were born together from the same gathering, for the same war, the 4 mortals founding the Inquisition and the 8 Marines founding the chapter, the 2 orders made to fight the demon together. And so the Grey Knights are embedded within the Inquisition, the chamber militant of the Ordo Malleus, answering to the demon hunters, serving as their sword in the war against chaos. The Silver Chapter and the demon hunting Inquisition are 2 halves of one weapon, made together, fighting together, bound from their founding in the same dark purpose. The Grey Knights answer to the Ordo Malleus and to the Emperor, and to almost no one else. They stand outside the ordinary structures of the Imperium, beyond the command of the Adeptus Terra, beyond the authority of the High Lords. Only the Ordo Malleus directs them. The demon hunters who share their secret war, the masters who alone command the Silver Chapter. This is the shape of the war against the demon. The Ordo Malleus directing, the Grey Knights striking, the hidden Inquisitors and the Silver Hunters waging together the secret war that the Imperium dares not speak of. The demon hunters and their chamber militant bound in the same hidden purpose. To call upon the Grey Knights is no small thing, and it speaks to the scale of the threats they face. The Silver Hunters are few, their numbers never more than 1,000, each warrior precious beyond measure. They are not spent on ordinary battles, not called upon for any foe that lesser forces could face. They are summoned only when the threat is demonic, only when the warp itself has broken into the world, only when a horror has risen that no other force could banish. To see the Grey Knights on a battlefield is to know that something terrible has come, a demon manifest, a chaos incursion of the gravest kind, a threat so dire that the Imperium's most secret and deadly weapon has been unleashed. And when they come to win at any cost. The Grey Knights do not fight for glory, do not fight for territory, do not fight the ordinary wars of the Imperium. They come to banish the demon, to destroy the manifestation of chaos, to drive the warp back out of the world, whatever the price. Their war is the most important war there is, the war against the corruption that would consume all mankind, and they wage it with the absolute purpose of warriors made for nothing else. When the Ordo Malleus unleashes its chamber militant, it unleashes the deadliest banishers of the demon in the galaxy, the Silver Hunters who will pay any price to drive the warp back into the dark. The Inquisitors and the Abyss. The Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus walk a more dangerous path than almost any other servant of the Imperium. For to hunt the demon is to risk becoming what one hunts. An Inquisitor of the Ordo Malleus must know his enemy. To hunt the demon, to banish it, to destroy the cults and sorcerers who serve chaos, he must understand the warp, study the demonic, learn the forbidden lore of the enemy. And this knowledge is a poison. To gaze long into the abyss of chaos, to study the demon, to wield the forbidden knowledge against the enemy, is to risk being drawn into the very darkness one fights. The Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus walk the edge of an abyss, hunting an enemy whose study can corrupt the hunter. This danger has split the Ordo Malleus and the Inquisition as a whole, into factions divided by how far one may go to fight the enemy. The Puritans hold that the demon must be fought with purity, that the forbidden knowledge and the dark powers must never be used, that to wield the enemy's weapons is to become the enemy. The radicals hold otherwise, that any weapon may be turned against chaos, even the forbidden knowledge, even the dark powers, that to defeat the demon, one may have to use the demon's own tools. The line between them is the line of the abyss, the question of how close one may walk to the darkness in order to fight it, and some inquisitors fall. Drawn by the very knowledge they study, seduced by the power they sought to turn against the enemy, some hunters of the demon become the thing they hunted, falling to the chaos they swore to destroy. An inquisitor who dabbled too far in the forbidden, who used the dark powers once too often, who gazed too long into the abyss, may be declared excommunicate traitorous, condemned as the very heretic he once pursued. This is the peril of the demon hunter, the abyss that gazes back, and it stands in sharp contrast to the grey knights who serve the Order. For where the inquisitors can fall, the silver hunters never have, the incorruptible chapter holding pure, where even the dread inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus sometimes succumb. The keeping of the secret. The war against the demon is a secret war, and keeping it secret demands a terrible price paid by those who witness it. The knowledge of the demon is dangerous, perhaps the most dangerous knowledge in the Imperium. To know that the gods of chaos are real, that demons walk the galaxy, that the warp seeks always to corrupt and destroy mankind, is to court the very corruption that knowledge describes. And so, the Ordo Malleus guards this knowledge with terrible ferocity, keeping the truth of the demon hidden from the Imperium at large, lest the knowledge itself become a doorway for chaos. The secret war must stay secret, for the truth of the enemy is a weapon the enemy can use. This is why the existence of the Grey Knights is so hidden, why the demon is so rarely spoken of, why the Ordo Malleus works in such absolute secrecy. The Imperium at large is kept ignorant of the demonic threat, protected from a knowledge that could corrupt it, the truth of chaos held by only the few who can bear it. The Ordo Malleus and the Grey Knights fight their war in shadow, hidden from the very people they protect, keeping the terrible secret of the demon so that the knowledge itself does not spread its poison through the Imperium. There is a strange mercy in this secrecy, for all its grimness. The countless billions of the Imperium live their hard lives without knowing the full horror that lurks beyond the veil of reality. They do not know that gods of chaos hunger for their souls, that demons press against the walls of the world, that the warp seeks always to break through and consume them. This ignorance is a kind of protection, a mercy of the dark. The people of the Imperium spared the knowledge that might break their minds or open their souls to corruption. The Ordo Malleus carries the terrible truth so that the billions do not have to. The demon hunters bearing the knowledge of the abyss so that the people they protect can live without it. But this mercy is bought at a price, and the price is borne by the demon hunters themselves. They carry the knowledge that would break others, hold the truth of the demon in their minds, live always with the awareness of the horror that presses against the world. And they must keep this knowledge absolute, guarding it with any measure necessary, ensuring that the secret never spreads. The burden of the secret falls upon those who keep it. The Ordo Malleus and the Grey Knights carrying the terrible truth of the demon, and paying, in ways we will come to, the price of keeping that truth from the galaxy they protect. And the keeping of this secret demands a price that falls upon the innocent. Those who witness the work of the Grey Knights, who see the demon, who learn the truth of the war against chaos, cannot be allowed to carry that knowledge away. even the loyal soldiers of the Imperium, the guardsmen and others who might fight alongside the demon hunters in a battle against chaos, are often killed or mind-wiped afterward, their memories taken or their lives ended so that the secret does not spread. The terrible truth of the Grey Knights is that they protect mankind from a knowledge so dangerous that even those who help them must sometimes be silenced, the keeping of the secret demanding a price paid by the very people the demon hunters fight to save. What that price is, and what it costs the Silver Hunters to pay it, is a darkness we will sit with at greater length in a later part. Tomorrow, we turn to the war itself, how the Grey Knights fight the demon, and the terrible battles they wage in the shadows. Sleep well. Tomorrow we follow the Silver Hunters into battle, into the war against the demon and the banishing of the warp's horrors. We have seen what the Grey Knights are, how they are made, and the masters they serve. Tonight we follow them into the thing they exist for, the war against the demon. We will sit with the nature of their enemy, the demon of the warp, and the gods of chaos who command it. We will see how the Silver Hunters fight, how they strike from the void and banish the horrors of the Immaterium, and how a single warrior can stand against a greater demon and win. For the Grey Knights were made for one war above all others, and tonight we walk beside them into it. Tonight we sit with the war against the demon, the Silver Hunters, and the horrors of the warp they were made to destroy. The nature of the enemy. To understand how the Grey Knights fight, we must first understand what they fight, for their enemy is unlike any other in the galaxy. The demon is a creature of the warp, the Immaterium, the realm of pure thought and emotion that lies beneath reality. It is something other than a being of flesh and blood, a fragment of a god of chaos given form, a piece of the warp's malice made manifest in the world. Demons are the servants and the extensions of the ruinous powers, the four great gods of chaos, and they press always against the walls of reality, seeking to break through, to manifest in the world, to corrupt and destroy and consume. The demon is chaos made flesh, the horror of the warp given shape. The enemy the Grey Knights were made to fight. Because the demon is a creature of the warp, it cannot be killed in the way a mortal foe can be killed. Strike down a demon's manifested form, and its essence is merely banished back to the warp, where in time it can reform and manifest again. The demon is not destroyed by the death of its body, for its true being lies in the Immaterium, beyond the reach of ordinary weapons. To fight the Daemon is to fight an enemy that cannot easily be made to stay dead, a foe whose essence endures in the warp, even when its form is broken, returning again and again to assault the world. This is what makes the demon so terrible an enemy, and why a special weapon was needed to fight it. Ordinary warriors can wound a demon, drive it back, banish its form for a time, but they cannot strike at what it is, cannot reach its essence in the warp, cannot make it stay gone. The Grey Knights were made to do what ordinary warriors cannot, to strike at the demon's very being, to banish it so far that it cannot easily return, to fight the creature of the warp on its own terms with weapons and powers made for that one purpose. They are the answer to an enemy that ordinary war cannot defeat. There is more to the demon's horror than its endurance, and it is the corruption it carries. The demon does not only kill. It corrupts, twists, defiles, spreading the taint of chaos wherever it manifests. To fight the demon is to fight an enemy that can turn your own soul against you, that can whisper temptations, that can corrupt the very warriors sent to destroy it. A demon does not merely threaten the body, it threatens the soul, offering power, whispering promises, seeking to turn the hunter into the hunted, the warrior into a servant of chaos. This is why purity matters so much in the war against the demon, for the enemy attacks with temptation and corruption, as much as with claw and fire, seeking to win through the soul what it cannot win through force. And the demon feeds on the very things that make us human. The gods of chaos are born of mortal emotion, of rage and hatred, of hope and ambition, of despair and sickness, of desire and excess. The demon is the child of these emotions, the manifestation of the darkest currents of the mortal soul. To fight the demon is, in a sense, to fight the darkness within mankind itself, the rage and the desire and the despair that feed the gods of chaos. The Grey Knights fight an enemy born of the human soul, a horror that mankind itself gives rise to, the demon that is both an external foe and a reflection of the darkness within the species it preys upon. The strike from the void. The Grey Knights fight in a way suited to their enemy and their numbers, striking suddenly and with overwhelming force where the demon has broken through. The Grey Knights are few, and they fight a foe that can appear anywhere the warp breaks into the world. And so they do not fight as a standing army, holding lines and grinding through campaigns. They strike suddenly and decisively, teleporting into battle through the warp itself, appearing where the demon has manifested, falling upon the horror with overwhelming force. The Silver Hunters come from the void without warning, materializing in the heart of a chaos incursion, striking at the demon before it can take root in the world. Theirs is a war of sudden, devastating strikes. The Silver Hunters appearing where they are needed and banishing the horror before it can spread. This way of war suits their nature and their purpose. The Grey Knights cannot be everywhere, cannot hold the whole galaxy against the demon, but they can strike where the threat is gravest, teleporting to the heart of an incursion, bringing their overwhelming power to bear in a single decisive blow. They are a scalpel rather than a war, a weapon of precise and devastating strikes against the worst manifestations of chaos. The Silver Hunters appearing where the demon has broken through and banishing it before it can consume the world. Their fewness is met by their precision, their small numbers by the suddenness and force of their strikes. And when they strike to banish, not merely to kill. The Grey Knights bring their nemesis weapons and their psychic power and their faith to bear, striking at the demon's essence, banishing it back to the warp so far that it cannot easily return. They do not merely break the demon's form and leave it to reform. They unmake it, banish its being, drive it out of the world with weapons and powers made for that one purpose. The strike of the Grey Knights is a banishing, a driving out, an unmaking of the demon that ordinary warriors could never achieve. The Silver Hunters striking from the void to drive the horror back into the dark. The suddenness of their arrival is itself a weapon. A chaos incursion is most vulnerable in its first moments, when the demon has only begun to manifest, when the breach in reality is still small. The Grey Knights strike at this moment, teleporting in before the incursion can grow, falling upon the demon while it is still weak, banishing it before it can establish itself and spread. By the time the enemy knows the Silver Hunters have come, the battle is often already turning, the demon already banished, the incursion already broken. The Grey Knights come from nowhere, strike with overwhelming force, and are gone. The whole battle a sudden devastating stroke against the horror before it can take root. This way of war demands much of the warriors who wage it. To teleport into the heart of a chaos incursion is to materialize in the worst place in the galaxy, surrounded by demons, in the very presence of the warp's horror. There is no slow approach, no gathering of strength, no time to prepare. The Grey Knights appear in the midst of the enemy and must fight at once, banishing the demon in the first moments of a battle that allows no hesitation. It is a war for warriors of absolute resolve, of unshakable faith, of perfect readiness. The Silver Hunters appearing in the heart of horror and striking without pause, banishing the demon in the place where it is strongest, before it can grow stronger still. The duel with the greater demon. The gravest foe the Grey Knights face is the greater demon, the mightiest servant of the gods of chaos, and they alone are made to face it. The greater demons are the most powerful creatures of the warp, the mightiest manifestations of the ruinous powers, beings of such power that whole armies break before them. A bloodthirster of Khorne, a lord of change of Tzeentch, a great unclean one of Nurgle, a keeper of secrets of Slaanesh. These are the greater demons, the champions of the gods of chaos, horrors against which ordinary warriors cannot stand. To face a greater demon is to face a fragment of a god, a being of overwhelming power, the worst the warp can raise against the world. And the Grey Knights are the ones made to face them. Where other warriors flee or fall before the greater demon, the Silver Hunters stand against it, meeting the champion of chaos with their nemesis weapons and their psychic power and their unbreakable faith. A Grand Master of the Grey Knights, wielding a nemesis force weapon, armored in Terminator plate, his soul a weapon of banishing power, can stand against a greater demon and win, banishing the champion of chaos back to the warp. Few daemons of any kind have stood against a Grand Master and survived, and even the greater demons can be banished by the deadliest of the Silver Hunters. And for the very greatest of these foes, the Grey Knights bring the Dread Knight, the towering war frame made for one purpose, to let a single warrior duel a greater demon and win. We have seen this machine before, the great armored frame that lets one Grey Knight meet the mightiest horror of the warp blade to blade. It is the ultimate expression of the Silver Hunters' defiance, the refusal to be cowed even by the champions of the gods of chaos. Where all the galaxy quails before the greater demon, the Grey Knights build a machine to fight it one against one. The Silver Hunters meeting the worst the warp can raise and banishing it back into the dark. To banish a greater demon is among the greatest feats a warrior can achieve, and it speaks to what the Grey Knights are. These are beings that have broken armies, laid waste to worlds, stood against the mightiest heroes of the Imperium and destroyed them. A single bloodthirster can slaughter a company of space marines. A lord of change can unmake a fortress with a word. A great unclean one can drown a world in plague. And the Grey Knights face these horrors and win, banishing the champions of chaos back to the warp. The Silver Hunters standing where the rest of the galaxy would fall. It is a measure of how deadly they are, that they are made to fight the foes that nothing else can stand against. Each such banishing is a victory bought with terrible effort, and often with terrible loss. To face a greater demon is to risk everything, and even the Silver Hunters fall in such battles. Brothers lost banishing the champions of chaos, lives given to drive a single greater demon back to the warp. But the demon is banished, the horror driven out, the world saved from a being that could have consumed it. The Grey Knights pay the price, lose their brothers, give their lives, and banish the greater demon, the Silver Hunters achieving what no other force could achieve, holding the line against the mightiest horrors the warp can raise, whatever it costs them to do it. The endless war. The war against the Daemon is a war without end, and this shapes everything about how the Grey Knights fight it. The Daemon cannot be wholly destroyed. Banished, it reforms in the warp. Driven out, it returns, Defeated in one place, it manifests in another. The war against the demon is eternal, a war that can be won battle by battle but never won outright, for the warp is endless, and the gods of chaos cannot be killed. The Grey Knights fight a war that will never end, banishing demon after demon, driving back incursion after incursion, knowing that the enemy they defeat today will rise again tomorrow, somewhere else in the galaxy. Theirs is the endless vigil, the war without victory, the eternal struggle against an enemy that can never be wholly destroyed. This might seem a hopeless thing, a war that cannot be won. But the Grey Knights do not fight for final victory. They fight to hold the line, to banish the demon wherever it breaks through, to keep the horror of the warp from consuming the world again and again, for as long as the war endures. Each banishing is a victory, each incursion driven back a triumph, each Daemon sent screaming back to the warp, a piece of the world saved from chaos. The Grey Knights measure their war in the holding of the line, rather than in final victory. The endless banishing of an endless enemy, the Silver Hunters keeping the demon at bay through a war that will last as long as the Imperium itself. There is a kind of grandeur in this, and a kind of sorrow. The Grey Knights will never win their war. They will banish demons until the end of the Imperium, and still the demon will come, for the warp is eternal and chaos cannot die. And yet they fight on, banishing the horror again and again, holding the line that must be held, keeping the world safe from the demon for one more day, and another, and another. The Silver Hunters are the eternal sentinels against the warp, fighting a war they cannot win and refusing to lose it, banishing the demon through the endless night of the Imperium, because the alternative is to let chaos consume everything. This endless war asks a particular kind of strength, beyond even the strength of arms. To fight a war that can never be won, to banish demon after demon knowing the enemy will always return, to give everything for a holding action that can never become a victory, demands a resolve that few could sustain. The Grey Knights do not fight for an ending, for a final triumph, for a day when the war will be done. They fight because the war must be fought, because the demon must be held back, because the alternative is unthinkable. Theirs is a devotion without the hope of victory, a faith that endures even knowing the war is eternal. The Silver Hunters holding the line because it must be held, not because they will ever win. And there is a quiet nobility in this that suits the Grey Knights. They ask for no final victory, just as they ask for no glory. They fight the endless war, banish the eternal enemy, hold the line through the long night, and ask only to do their duty and, at the last, to rest among their brothers in the crypts of Titan. The Silver Hunters carry the weight of an unwinnable war with the same quiet purpose they carry everything else, fighting on without hope of ending, holding the world against the demon for as long as the Imperium endures, the eternal sentinels who keep the darkness at bay through a war that will never end. Tomorrow, we turn to the darkest part of their story, the price of the purity they bear, and the terrible things the war against the demon demands of them. Sleep well. Tomorrow, we sit with the price of purity, the darkest cost of the war against the demon, and what it asks of the Silver Hunters. We have followed the Grey Knights through their founding, their making, and their war. Tonight we come to the darkest part of their story, the price of the purity they bear. For the Silver Hunters are not only the noblest warriors of the Imperium, they are also bound to terrible deeds, things done in the name of secrecy and purity that sit heavy on any conscience that considers them. Tonight we sit with the cost of what the Grey Knights are, the price paid to keep their war secret, and their souls pure, and the darkness that runs alongside their light. Tonight we sit with the price of purity, the terrible cost of the war against the demon, and the deeds that shadow the silver hunters. The keeping of the secret. We have seen that the war against the demon must be kept secret, and that the keeping of the secret falls upon those who witness it. Tonight we look at what that means in full. The knowledge of the demon is a poison, a thing that can corrupt the mind and open the soul to chaos. And so, the Ordo Malleus and the Grey Knights guard this knowledge with absolute ferocity, ensuring that those who witness the war against the demon cannot carry that knowledge away. When the silver hunters fight a chaos incursion, those who see them, those who learn the truth of the demon, those who witness the horror, become a danger, carriers of a knowledge that must not spread, and the Grey Knights deal with this danger in the hardest of ways. Often, the witnesses are killed. The civilians who saw the demon, the soldiers who fought beside the silver hunters, the survivors who learned the truth of chaos, are put to death. Their lives ended so that the secret dies with them. Others are mind-wiped, their memories stripped away, the knowledge of the demon erased from their minds, so that they carry nothing dangerous away from the battle. Even the loyal soldiers of the Imperium, the guardsmen who fought bravely against the demon alongside the Grey Knights, may be killed or mind-wiped afterward. Their courage and their loyalty, no protection against the necessity of the secret. There is a terrible coldness in this that the Grey Knights themselves must bear. The people they silence are often innocent, often loyal, often the very people they fought to save. A guardsman who stood beside a Grey Knight against the demon, who fought with courage, who survived the horror, may be killed for what he saw, his loyalty rewarded with death, so that the secret holds. This is the price of keeping the war against the demon hidden, and it is paid by the innocent, the loyal, the brave silenced, so that the knowledge of chaos does not spread its poison through the Imperium. Consider the cruelty of it from the side of the witness. A soldier of the Imperium fights a battle unlike any he has known, against horrors he never imagined, beside silver warriors who appeared from nowhere and fought like the wrath of the Emperor himself. He survives. He has done his duty, held against the demon, lived through the worst day of his life, and his reward is death, or the stripping away of his memories, because he saw too much, because he knows a truth that cannot be allowed to spread. The very courage that carried him through the battle has marked him for silencing. The loyalty that made him fight made him a danger that must be removed. This is one of the hardest truths of the Imperium, and the Grey Knights are bound to it. The secret of the demon is so dangerous that even the loyal must be silenced to keep it. Even the brave must die. Even the faithful must be erased. The silver hunters carry this burden, the knowledge that the keeping of their secret demands the lives or the memories of the innocent, that the war against the demon is paid for in the silencing of the very people it is fought to protect. It is a coldness born of necessity, a cruelty demanded by the secret, and the Grey Knights bear it as they bear everything else, doing the hard thing because the alternative is the spread of a poison that could doom mankind. The blood of the innocent. There is a darkness deeper still in the practices of the Grey Knights, bound up with the rituals of purity that protect them from the demon. To fight the demon, the Grey Knights must be pure, warded against the corruption of the warp. And some of the rituals by which they maintain this purity are terrible things. In their most infamous deeds, the silver hunters have used the blood of the innocent to sanctify themselves and their war gear, inscribing wards and purity seals in blood, anointing their armor with the lives of others to ward away the demon. The purity that protects them from chaos has been bought, at times, with the blood of the very people they are sworn to protect. The most infamous example comes from the war for Armageddon, where a force of Grey Knights, facing a demonic incursion, slaughtered a company of loyal Sisters of Battle, holy warriors of the Imperium, and used their blood to inscribe protective wards. The Sisters were faithful servants of the Emperor, warriors as devoted as the Grey Knights themselves, and they were killed so that their blood could sanctify the Silver Hunters against the Demon. To the Grey Knights, it was a necessary act. The blood of the faithful turned into a weapon against chaos. To any other eye, it was the murder of the innocent and the loyal, a deed of terrible darkness done in the name of purity. This is the grimdark heart of the Grey Knights, the shadow that runs alongside their light. They are the noblest warriors of the Imperium, the incorruptible hunters of the Daemon, the purest souls mankind has made, and they are bound to deeds of terrible darkness, the slaughter of the innocent, the use of the blood of the faithful, the silencing of the loyal, all in the name of the purity and the secrecy that their war demands. The light and the darkness are woven together in them. The Silver Hunters who save mankind from the Demon and who do terrible things in the saving. The purest warriors of the Imperium bound to its darkest deeds. The deed at Armageddon is the one most often told, but it stands for a pattern, not an exception. Wherever the Grey Knights fight, the same hard logic follows them. The secret must be kept, the purity must be maintained, and the cost is paid by whoever happens to stand in the way of those necessities. The blood used in their rituals, the witnesses silenced after their battles, the loyal servants of the Imperium sacrificed to the demands of secrecy and purity, are the recurring price of the Silver Hunters' war. Armageddon is remembered because it is stark, but the darkness it reveals runs through the whole history of the chapter, and the hardest part is that, by the logic of their war, none of it is gratuitous. The Grey Knights do not kill the innocent for pleasure, do not spill blood for cruelty, do not silence the loyal out of malice. Every terrible deed is done in service of a purpose, the keeping of the secret, the maintenance of the purity, the war against the Demon that must be won at any cost. This is what makes the darkness so troubling, that it is the work of heroes rather than monsters, born of necessity rather than cruelty, the noblest warriors of the Imperium doing terrible things because their war demands them. The Grey Knights are not villains. They are heroes bound to dark deeds, and that is a harder and sadder thing. The weight of the deed. What does it cost the Grey Knights themselves to do these things? This is a question the law leaves open, and it is worth sitting with. The Grey Knights are not unfeeling. Whatever the necessity of their deeds, they are warriors of conscience, of faith, of devotion, beings who understand the weight of what they do. To kill the innocent, to silence the loyal, to use the blood of the faithful, cannot be a light thing even for warriors made for the hardest duties. The Silver Hunters bear the weight of these deeds, the knowledge that they have killed the very people they fought to save, the burden of the terrible things their war demands. Their purity of soul does not make them cold to the cost. It may make them feel it more keenly, the noble warriors bound to ignoble deeds, carrying the weight of what purity and secrecy demand. There is a logic to it, the grim logic of the Imperium, and by that logic the deeds are justified. The Demon is the worst enemy mankind faces. The knowledge of chaos is a poison that could corrupt the species. The purity of the Grey Knights is the one defense that has never failed. And so the silencing of witnesses, the rituals of blood, the terrible deeds done in the name of the secret war, are weighed against the salvation of mankind and judged worth the cost. By the Imperium's measure, the Grey Knights do what must be done, paying in the lives of the few for the safety of the many, doing the dark deeds that the war against the demon requires. And yet the question remains, and the law does not answer it. Is it right? Can the salvation of mankind justify the murder of the innocent, the slaughter of the loyal, the blood of the faithful spilled to ward away the demon? The Grey Knights do these things, believe them necessary, bear their weight. But whether they are right, whether the price of purity is a price that should be paid, is left for us to wonder. The Silver Hunters are the answer to one of the darkest questions of the Imperium. What may be done, what must be done, to hold back the worst horror in the galaxy? And the answer they embody is a hard one. The noblest warriors bound to the darkest deeds, the price of purity paid in the blood of the very people they are sworn to save. This is the nature of the setting the Grey Knights inhabit, the grim darkness of the far future, where there are no clean answers and no easy good. In a kinder universe, the saviors of mankind would be unstained, their nobility unshadowed, their hands clean. But the Imperium is not a kind universe. It is a place where the greatest good may demand the greatest darkness, where the salvation of the many may be bought with the blood of the few, where even the purest warriors are bound to terrible deeds. The Grey Knights are heroes of this universe, and so they are heroes shadowed by darkness, their nobility inseparable from the hard and terrible things their war demands. Perhaps this is why their purity matters so much, and why it is guarded with such care. A warrior who does such deeds, who silences the innocent and spills the blood of the faithful, walks close to the very darkness he fights. It would be easy, doing such things, to lose oneself, to become the monster, to fall to the chaos one serves the Emperor against. And the Grey Knights do not fall. Whatever terrible things they do them without being corrupted by them, holding to their purpose and their faith, even as they carry out the darkest deeds. Their incorruptibility is what lets them bear the weight of the price of purity without being destroyed by it. The Silver Hunters doing terrible things in service of the light and remaining, somehow, unbroken. The tragedy of the Silver Hunters. When we gather all of this together, a tragedy emerges at the heart of the Grey Knights, and it is worth holding as we near the end. The Grey Knights give everything for mankind. They are taken from their lives, their memories erased, their selves unmade, to be forged into incorruptible weapons against the demon. They fight a war that can never be won, banishing the horror of the warp again and again through the endless night of the Imperium. They die unsung, their heroism known to no one, their names carved only on a hidden wall in a hidden fortress. And they bear the weight of terrible deeds, the silencing of the innocent, the blood of the faithful, the darkness their war demands. They give everything and ask for nothing but to do their duty and rest at the last among their brothers. And the galaxy they save will never know. The billions the Grey Knights protect from the demon will live and die ignorant of the Silver Hunters, never knowing that an incorruptible chapter fought and bled and died to keep the horror of the warp from consuming them. The Grey Knights save mankind in secret, give everything in secret, bear the weight of their dark deeds in secret, and receive in return no thanks, no glory, no recognition, only the quiet of the crypts of Titan at the last. They are the unseen guardians, the secret saviors, the Silver Hunters who give all and are known by none. There is a loneliness in this that runs deeper than the loneliness of any other warriors. A space marine of another chapter is honored, his deeds sung, his chapter known and revered across the Imperium. He fights for a humanity that knows his name, that honors his sacrifice, that remembers his chapter's glory. But the Grey Knight fights for a humanity that does not know he exists. He silences the very people he saves. He bears the weight of terrible deeds that no one will ever understand. And he dies unsung, remembered only by his brothers, his sacrifice invisible to the galaxy it preserved. The Silver Hunters are alone in a way no other warriors are, giving everything for a humanity that will never know them. And still they fight. This is the heart of it, the thing that makes them more than tragic. Knowing they will never be thanked, never be known, never win their war, bound to terrible deeds and a secret too dark to share, the Grey Knights fight on. They hold the line against the Demon, banish the horror of the warp, give their selves and their memories and their lives, all for a galaxy that will never know what they gave. There is no reward in it, no glory, no ending, only the duty and the war and the quiet rest at the last. And they choose it, bear it, give everything for it. The Silver Hunters holding the darkness back through the endless night, because someone must. And they are the ones made to do it. This is the tragedy and the nobility of the Grey Knights together. They are the purest warriors mankind has made, and they pay for that purity in their selves, their memories, their lives, and the weight of terrible deeds. They are the saviors of mankind, and they save in secret, unknown and unthanked. They fight the worst enemy in the galaxy, hold the line that no one else can hold, and ask for nothing but to do their duty and rest among their brothers at the last. The price of purity is everything they are, given for a galaxy that will never know their names. The Silver Hunters, who carry the light and the darkness together through the endless night of the Imperium. Tomorrow, in the final part, we gather the whole of their story and ask what the Grey Knights mean, the unbroken chapter that has never fallen. Sleep well. Tomorrow, in the final part, we sit with the meaning of the unbroken, the chapter that has never fallen, and the silver light kept in the dark. We have followed the Grey Knights from their founding in the fire of the heresy, through their making and their war, into the darkest deeds the price of purity demands. Tonight, in this final part, we come to the thing that defines them above all else, the wonder that sits at the very heart of the chapter. In 10,000 years, they have never fallen. Not one, not once. In a galaxy where everything is corrupted, where the mightiest heroes turn and the strongest chapters fall, the Grey Knights have held pure and unbroken through the longest and darkest war mankind has ever fought. Tonight we sit with the unbroken, and with what it means that in all the corruption of the galaxy, one thing has never fallen. Tonight, in this final part, we sit with the unbroken chapter, the silver light kept in the dark, and the meaning of a thing that has never fallen. The unbroken. Of all the things that can be said of the Grey Knights, one stands above the rest. They have never fallen. In 10,000 years of war against the Demon, of fighting the worst horrors the warp can raise, of standing in the very presence of the gods of chaos, not a single Grey Knight has ever been corrupted. This is a claim no other force in the Imperium can make. Across 10 millennia, through battle after battle in the heart of chaos incursions, surrounded by the corruption of the warp, facing temptations that have turned primarchs and broken chapters, the Silver Hunters have held. Every one of them, across all the long ages of their war, has remained pure. The chapter has never fallen, not in part, not in whole, not once in 10,000 years. To understand how extraordinary this is, consider the galaxy around them. Space Marines fall. Whole chapters turn to chaos, their warriors corrupted, their fortresses become dens of horror. Inquisitors of the Ordo Malleus, meant to hunt the demon, are seduced by the very lore they study and become the heretics they once pursued. Even Primarchs, the demigod sons of the Emperor, were drawn into the service of the dark gods. The warp is patient and endless, and it finds the cracks in even the strongest souls, corrupting, twisting, turning the mightiest to its purpose across the long millennia. Corruption is the rule of the galaxy, the slow and certain work of chaos upon all who stand against it. And against all of this, the Grey Knights have held. They fight the demon at closer quarters than any other force, stand in the warp's very presence, study the forbidden lore, do the terrible deeds their war demands, and still they do not fall. Where everything else is corrupted, where the rule of the galaxy is that all things turn in time, the Grey Knights are the exception, the one force that chaos has never broken. In 10,000 years of the longest and darkest war mankind has ever waged, the Silver Hunters have remained pure, the unbroken chapter, the one thing in all the galaxy that has never fallen. It is worth asking how this is possible, when so much else falls. The answer lies in everything we have seen. The Emperor's own gene seed, the purest in the Imperium, the grueling making that filters out any flaw, the erasing of the self that might have been corrupted, the silver wards worked into flesh and armor, the unshakable faith that is itself a weapon, the constant vigilance against any crack through which corruption might enter. Every part of a Grey Knight is a defense against the fall, every layer of his making a guard against the warp. The unbroken purity of the chapter is not an accident or a mystery. It is the achievement of everything that goes into making a Grey Knight, the sum of all the terrible price they pay, and the price is part of why they hold. The Grey Knights are unbroken in part because they have given up so much to be so, their selves erased, their lives bound to the war, their souls hardened against the slightest weakness. The very things that make their making so terrible are the things that make their purity so absolute. They have paid for their incorruptibility with everything they are, and that is why it holds, where the easier purity of others fails. The unbroken chapter is unbroken because it has been forged, at terrible cost, into something that cannot break. The Silver Hunters made proof against the fall by the very price that makes their story so hard. The silver light in the dark. There is a meaning in this unbroken purity that reaches beyond the Grey Knights themselves into the whole grim darkness of their universe. The galaxy of the 41st Millennium is a place of almost unrelieved darkness. The Imperium is a cruel and dying empire, beset on all sides, rotting from within, holding on through endless war and sacrifice. Chaos corrupts, the alien threatens, the warp presses against the walls of reality, and everywhere the light of mankind gutters and fails. It is a universe where hope is scarce, where good is hard to find, where almost everything is touched by corruption, cruelty, or despair. This is the grim darkness of the far future, the setting in which the Grey Knights fight their endless war. And in this darkness, the Grey Knights are a light. They are the one thing that has never fallen, the one force that chaos has never turned, the single point of unbroken purity in a galaxy of corruption. Whatever darkness surrounds them, whatever terrible deeds their war demands, whatever price they pay, they remain pure, unbroken, incorruptible. In a universe where almost everything is touched by chaos, the Grey Knights are the proof that something can hold, that purity is possible, that not all things must fall. They are a silver light in the dark, the one unbroken thing in a galaxy of broken things. This is what they mean to the Imperium, and to the whole grim setting they inhabit. They are the proof that the darkness is not total, that even in the worst universe imaginable, one thing can remain pure. The Grey Knights hold the line against despair itself as much as against the demon, the Silver Hunters standing as evidence that corruption is not inevitable, that some souls can face the worst the warp can offer and remain unbroken. In a galaxy where hope is scarce, the Grey Knights are a kind of hope, the unbroken chapter, the silver light that has never gone out in 10,000 years of the deepest dark. There is a paradox in this that is worth holding. The Grey Knights do terrible things. They silence the innocent, spill the blood of the faithful, bear deeds that sit heavy on any conscience. And yet they are, at the same time, the purest thing in the galaxy, the one force that has never fallen, the silver light in the dark. The darkness and the light are both real in them, the terrible deeds and the unbroken purity together. They are not pure because they do no wrong. They are pure because whatever they do, the warp can never turn them, never corrupt them, never break them. Their purity is of the soul, the incorruptibility that holds even through the darkest deeds, the light that does not go out even in the doing of terrible things. Perhaps this is the truest meaning of the Grey Knights, and the most fitting for the grim universe they inhabit. In a kinder world, purity would mean clean hands, unstained nobility, good done and no wrong committed. But in the grim darkness of the far future, purity means something harder. The soul that holds even through the worst, the warrior who does terrible things and is not broken by them, the light that endures in the dark because it refuses to go out, not because the dark is absent. The Grey Knights are pure in this harder sense, the unbroken souls who hold their light through deeds that would damn others, the Silver Hunters who carry their incorruptibility through the darkest war imaginable and never let it fail. The war that goes on. The war of the Grey Knights did not end with the long millennia. It continues into the darkest age the Imperium has ever known, the present hour of the 41st millennium and beyond. In recent times, the galaxy has suffered a catastrophe greater than any since the heresy. A great rift tore open across the heavens, a vast wound in reality through which the warp poured into the world, splitting the Imperium in two and unleashing the demon on a scale never seen before. The great rift brought the horror of the warp into real space as never before. Demonic incursions erupting across the galaxy, the boundary between the world and the immaterium broken open. For the demon hunters, this was the gravest hour of their long war. The enemy they were made to fight pouring into the galaxy in numbers beyond counting. And the Grey Knights answered, as they always have, where the rift tore open and the demon poured through. The Silver Hunters came, banishing the horror, holding the line, fighting the gravest demonic incursions in the history of their war. The age of the Great Rift is an age of demons, and so it is an age that demands the Grey Knights as never before. The Silver Hunters waging their endless war against an enemy now loosed upon the galaxy in unprecedented force. The war that began in the fire of the heresy continues into the fire of the present age. The demon hunters holding the line against a tide of chaos greater than any they have faced. Through it all, they remain what they have always been. Even in the darkest hour, with the galaxy torn open and the demon loosed as never before, the Grey Knights hold pure, unbroken, the silver light that does not go out. The Great Rift has brought the worst the warp can offer, and still the Silver Hunters do not fall. Still they banish the horror. Still they hold the line. The unbroken chapter endures into the present darkness. The demon hunters fighting on through the gravest age of their war. Pure and unbroken as they have been for 10,000 years, the silver light kept burning even as the galaxy burns around it. There is something fitting in the Grey Knights enduring into this darkest age. They were made for the worst the warp could offer, forged in the fire of one catastrophe to fight the horror of chaos. And now, in the age of the Great Rift, the worst has come. The Daemon loosed as never before, the galaxy facing a tide of chaos greater than any since the heresy itself. If ever there was an hour the Grey Knights were made for, it is this one. The Silver Hunters, forged in the first great catastrophe, hold the line in the latest and greatest, the Demon Hunters meeting the worst age of the Imperium with the same unbroken purity they have carried from the beginning. And so their war goes on, as it always has, as it always will. The demon comes, and the Grey Knights banish it. The horror rises, and the Silver Hunters drive it back. The dark presses in, and the unbroken chapter holds the line, as it has held for 10,000 years and will hold for 10,000 more, for as long as the Imperium endures and the demon presses against the walls of the world. The war that began in the fire of the heresy has no end, and neither do the Silver Hunters who fight it. The unbroken chapter holding the line through the endless night, now and for all the ages still to come. Or what the Grey Knights mean. So we come to the end, and to the meaning of the Silver Hunters, the demon slayers of Titan, the Grey Knights. They are the Emperor's secret weapon, forged from his own genome in the last days of the heresy, made for the one enemy he feared above all others. They are an entire chapter of psykers, warriors of blade and mind and faith, made to fight the demon on its own ground. They are the Silver Hunters, hidden on Titan, secret even from most of the Imperium, fighting a war in shadow that almost no one knows is being fought. They are warriors made pure at a terrible price, their selves erased, their memories taken, their purity bought with the loss of who they were. And they are the Unbroken, the one force in all the galaxy that, in 10,000 years, has never fallen to chaos. Their story is one of purity and its price, of light and the darkness woven through it. They give everything for mankind, their selves, their memories, their lives, and the weight of terrible deeds done in the name of the secret war. They fight a war that can never be won, holding the line against the demon through the endless night of the Imperium. They die unsung, their heroism known to no one, remembered only on a hidden wall in a hidden fortress, and they remain pure through all of it, the unbroken chapter, the silver light that chaos has never been able to put out. And there is a meaning in them that reaches past the law, into something any of us might feel. The Grey Knights are the figure of those who hold to what they are no matter what, who remain unbroken through the worst the world can offer, who give everything and ask for nothing, who do their duty in the dark with no hope of thanks or glory. They are the unseen guardians, the ones who hold the line so that others can live, the pure thing that does not fall even when everything around it falls. There is a kind of nobility in that which speaks beyond the grim setting they inhabit, the nobility of holding fast, of remaining unbroken, of being the light that does not go out. We know such figures, in quieter forms, in our own world, the ones who do the hard and thankless work that keeps others safe, the ones who hold to what they believe through every pressure to let it go, the ones who give without being seen, who guard without being thanked, who remain themselves through everything that would break or change them. The Grey Knights are these figures written large, in silver and fire, against the darkest backdrop imaginable. And in their unbroken purity, there is something to hold on to. The idea that a soul can stay true through anything, that some lights do not go out, that even in the deepest dark, one thing can remain unbroken. That is the gift of their story, beneath all the grimness and the terrible deeds. They are proof that holding fast is possible, that purity can endure, that the dark does not have to win. The Grey Knights fight the worst enemy in the galaxy, do the hardest things imaginable, give up everything they are, and still they hold, still they remain pure, still the silver light burns. In a universe of endless dark, they are the unbroken thing, and there is a quiet comfort in that. The knowledge that somewhere in the deepest night, a light is still burning, and has never once gone out. This has been the entire timeline of the Grey Knights, the Silver Hunters of Titan, the Chamber Militant of the Order Malleus, the Emperor's secret weapon against the Daemon, forged from the Emperor's own genome in the fire of the heresy, hidden on a moon at the edge of the Sol system, made pure at the price of the selves they once were, bound to terrible deeds in the name of the secret war, and unbroken, always unbroken, the one force in all the galaxy that, in 10,000 years of fighting the worst horror imaginable, has never once fallen. They are the silver light kept in the dark, the unbroken chapter, the secret saviors who give everything for a galaxy that will never know their names, and who hold pure and unbroken through the endless night. Told slowly, for the quiet between waking and whatever waits in the dark. Good night, my friend.